Okay, so our topic of today is uncover hidden dynamics and relationship challenges with family constellations. So we are going to be focusing on a modality that is called family, or even it's called systemic constellations. I have divided in my head the webinar into 2 or 3 parts. I will take you through that, and of course, as I mentioned, I want to keep it as interactive as possible. So all questions are all the time welcome, anytime. So for the ones who are attending my webinar today who don't know me, my name is Arpita, and I'm a holistic facilitator and a wellness consultant with Illuminations. I work in the JLT Center. Um, as you can see, I practice a couple of broad modalities. Of course, there are subheadings. I am a clinical hypnotherapist. I'm a transpersonal regression therapist as well, and a family constellation facilitator. I'm also a teacher of clinical hypnotherapy, and I do a lot of work with the corporates in terms of corporate wellness and corporate training. This is what I call as my second innings of my career, of my life in general, because I studied economics, I'm an MBA, and I've worked in the corporate sector for more than 15 years. And then I was introduced to this world of healing, to the world of these different beautiful modalities. And though I didn't plan it, but I think it was probably in my destiny. I was probably fortunate enough to meet some wonderful teachers at some point in my life, who in their own way have led me to this new career which I am into for the last few years. I've been in Dubai for more than 13 years now and counting. I'm from India. I live with my husband, my twins, and my 2 dogs here in Dubai. That's about me. Going into the details of the topic today, we are going to understand a very common thing. You know, we as individuals, each one of us have our own ways of looking at our relationships. Relationships is something that is common to all of us. But today we are not going to look at it through the lenses of the conscious, the subconscious. We're not going to look at it through any other modality like hypnotherapy or cognitive behavioral therapy or regression therapy. In fact, we're going to look at it completely in a different way through a very unique modality, what we call as family constellations. It's also called systemic constellations. Though today we are focusing on relationships, I would like to make a point here that this modality is just not used for issues or our relationship issues in the families, which is predominantly what we do and what we're going to talk about today. But at the same time, this is a tool that we use a lot in the corporate world as well, because we're talking of systems, right? And just like family is a system, the same way departments in a company are also systems. So the same rules that we will learn about today, the same principles on which this modality works. Systemic constellation is used for conflict resolution, is used for a variety of programs for the corporates as well. So those who you are absolutely new to family constellations, welcome. You're going to be introduced to a modality which is absolutely unique. And keeping that in mind, I have just kept a very few frequently asked questions. What is family constellations? How does it work? And how do you know that it is something that will interest you? That's what I'm going to bring to you today. And in the last segment, I will keep it open for any questions that you have. I'm here to clear all your doubts. And as I mentioned earlier, because I see there are a lot more people who have now joined in, at any point of time, if you have any questions, you need not keep it till the end. The chat box is active, so you can type in your question or your comments there, and I will periodically look at the chat box and I'll try to answer them as I go forward. So coming to our main topic, we're talking of relationship challenges today. Now, I plan to take a more broad view of relationships today, just not the relationships that we have within our family or friends. We're going to look at anything that is a relationship. Now, Now, as human beings, from the time that we are not even born, we are in our mother's womb, the first thing that we encounter or we kind of feel is a relationship. The first relationship, of course, physical part is with our mothers. And then through our mothers, and prenatal studies show that when we are in our mother's womb, we are experiencing the world that is outside of us through the mother's emotions, through the mother's what is happening in the environment of the mother, which means even before our consciousness or conscious mind kicks in, we are simply aware of so many relationships in our lives. Of course, with our parents, with our environment, with elements in our environment, so on and so forth. So, when we talk of relationship challenges, today we will talk about of course, our family. When we say family, two types of families: family of origin, which is where I was born into, where I belong, my parents, my siblings, my grandparents, my family tree. And then we can talk about the family, the current family. So, for if you are married, if you have a partner, if you have children, then you have a current family as well. Most of the relationship challenges as a therapist that I work with is kind of toxicities that come into between two people, as you can see in the pictures here. It could be gaps in relationships. It could be having a person who is there but not there, missing. Those are our relationship with our direct family or friends. But we also have other relationships in our lives. For example, relationship with career, my relationship with my job, my relationship with my boss, with my manager, with my colleagues, a relationship with elements like health. Do I have a good rapport with health? Am I a healthy person, or is there a different kind of an equation I share with my health? Money. Do I have a positive, flowing abundance of money, or is my relationship with money a question mark? So, why I'm bringing this to you is you can choose for now, and you can think of what would you keep in mind as you know more about this modality and how it works. You could choose, and that's the beauty of this line of work in systemic or family constellations. It's not that you always have to choose a relationship with a person. You could choose relationship with any of these elements, and you could think of more. These are just top of my mind examples that I have. So again, from my experience as a practicing therapist, these are the most common relationship challenges that I see most of the time. So painful family situations that we struggle with. It just could be that, I just don't get along with my father. No matter what happens, there's always a gap, and this struggle has been going on for many, many years. It could be for someone that I find it extremely difficult to find love in my life, and well, love comes and then something goes wrong and then love goes. So the relationship with having that loving partner may be in a question mark. Or you could be in a position where I'm not able to attract or maintain harmonious relationships. Again, relationship with respect to a person or any of the elements that we said. And then you look at if you are in a zone where you're attracting certain experiences, like I am always abandoned, I attract abuse, I attract dominance, or I attract neglect for that matter. So that's also a pattern that you can identify for yourself. Again, very common, keep attracting the same kind of partner. So no matter how much I want to move away from certain kind of people, it seems like the partners that I attract in my life seem to be, for example, emotionally unavailable or dominant or aloof or cool. A pattern of losing everything that you've earned. For example, this is also a relationship with money. It could be a relationship with your career. It could be a relationship with your materialistic possessions, that you work really hard, you earn a lot of money, or you gather a lot of possessions, but once you go to the top, boom, something happens and you lose more or less everything. General block to abundance, difficulty in attracting money, or difficulty in getting ahead with careers. Again, these are all statements, all questions that point to a relationship that I'm having with either a person or it could be with an element. And that straight away brings us to understanding the modality of family constellations. Now, family constellation is a very unique modality. And why I say it's very unique, number one is this modality is what we call as a solution focused modality. Now, many of you, the ones that I know, you are working with other modalities of mind sciences where, where a client comes to you with a problem. So we start with the problem and then we peel and then we go to the resolution. Family constellation is the other way around. Here, the focus is not problem centric. The focus is on the solution. All we do in this modality is to hold space for the final picture or for the final resolution to come up. So the focus is completely on um, solution focus modality. Here we are talking of trauma or imprints that have come probably through generations. So now you're talking of transgenerational transference of trauma. Um, for example, it could be running in the family of origin. If you're looking at this from a corporate perspective, it could be running in the history of the company or the history of the department. So what we're talking of is imprints, memories, occurrences, incidents that have happened to people who are higher up in the hierarchy of our system. And we, as the juniors or the children of those systems, somehow tend to be entangled with them and we carry forward that same kind of trauma. Now, this is a modality of profound healing, not only at the level of the conscious mind, subconscious mind, but here we are talking of the movement of the soul. We are talking of healing from a perspective of the soul. And very interesting is in this modality, you do not require the presence of your mind. So this is not a mind science modality where you are tapping into the subconscious or you're tapping into the conscious. In fact, family constellations can be conducted even without the physical presence of a person, with, of course, prior permission. And if it is for a small child, then, of course, with the consent of the parents. And it is a very new modality. So it's unlike psychology, psychoanalysis, or even hypnotherapy for that matter, where these modalities have been in the world and have been run over centuries. Family constellation is actually a very, very new modality. When I say new, it kind of started to gain prominence only around the 1970s. So that's what makes it very new, and it is definitely a unique modality. And I'm going to get into the details of it now. Now, family constellations was developed by a German psychotherapist. His name is Bert Hellinger. We family constellation facilitators, we owe this modality entirely to him. The funny enough, Bert Hellinger never claimed to, name it family constellations, but it is his baby, as you can see. Bert Hellinger was born in Germany, and during the World Wars, he was actually in South Africa as a missionary. He studied theology, he studied philosophy, and during his tenure in South Africa, he was ordained as a priest. He was a teacher, even a headmaster of a school. And during his stay in South Africa, he's believed to have even observed, a lot of Zulu rituals and tenets, which have become part of this modality as well. Now, the beauty of this line of work, or the way the Bert Hellinger brought this together, is of course, he worked with families, and having worked for many, many years, what he developed was this whole science, this whole way of working was developed through his observation of what the problems were, how they came to a resolution. So we have a term called phenomenology. This line of work is based on that term. Uh, what does it mean? In very simple language, it means that when you're using phenomenology, you are actually recognizing the essential elements of a system, of whatever is there, without any putting any intention to solve it, without any fear, or without any perception from the outside. So it's a study of a very subjective experience, looking at things exactly the way they are, not trying to alter them, change them, solve them. How does this work? So we look at systems. What is a system? There are so many systems that are around us. Families are a system. The organizations we work in are systems. Our communities, our countries, our planet, everything that you see is a system. And what is a system? The way we define it in family constellation is, we say the system is the energy field that connects the members and holds them together. So, for example, in this webinar, we are a group of people and we are a system at the moment. Now, when the webinar ends, we disconnect and we go back. The system here then ceases to exist. But the fact is, there is this system right now. We are the members of it. And though we may not be able to see each other, but we are connected energetically at this moment. Another way of looking at system, look at our physical bodies, look at the human body. We have how many systems? We have the circulatory system, we have the nervous system, so on and so forth. How does these systems work? They are a unit in itself, right? So the cells, the muscles, the veins, the nerves, everything in that system forms a part. Every cell or organ belongs to that system, which is very different from any other system. So this study, this line of work is knowing that we just don't exist as individuals. We exist as systems because we are all interconnected. So individuals are connected within the system and systems are connected with other systems. Now, another way of looking at it, the word constellation, we look at the universe, we look at the stars, we look at the constellations. Again, there's a belonging, but at the same time there is a larger belonging. And in this modality, we are just not looking at it from an individual's perspective of their personal consciousness. We are also looking at what we call as the collective consciousness. We are even going beyond the collective consciousness to a position of what we call as meta consciousness, where we are looking at the system from the outside. When I explain to you how it works at a workshop level or a one-on-one level, I think it will be much clearer. Any questions? You can, as I said, you can always ask. Moving on. Just to keep it very simple, yet for you to understand how family constellations or systemic constellation works, I'm just going to give you a very short preview into three major principles on which this entire modality is based. And following the principles, I will give you real life examples from the workshop that I have conducted in the recent past to help you understand how we kind of unravel and how the resolution picture comes up. So the first and foremost, and it's very easy actually, none of these principles are rocket science. It's actually very simple yet very profound. The first principle of family constellations is that we all, as members of our systems, of our societies, of our families, of our organizations, we have a need to belong. Now, anyone who is alive, anyone who has been born, obviously belongs, because if I'm born, that means I have a mom and I have a dad. It means I have a family. So this is not about looking at my subjective relationship with my parents. So I can have a wonderful equation with my parents and I say, oh, I belong to my family. Or I may have not so good relationship with my parents and I say I don't belong to them. No, the fact remains that we belong because life has flown to us. It has come down like a cascade from our ancestors down to our grandparents, and from our grandparents to our parents, and from them to us, and then it flows from us to our children. When we say we belong to a family, we are predominantly first talking of family of origin, where we are born. And then, of course, we belong to the family of our current family, where we are married into, where we have our own children, and the life, the flow continues. It is important to note here that when we say we belong, that's half the truth. The full sentence is we belong and all of us belong equally. Now, when I say all of us belong equally, I mean people in our families, in our systems, who are dead or alive, makes no difference from a systemic or a family constellation point of view. So, for example, abortions, miscarriages, stillborns, loss of a baby very young, any exclusions, it doesn't mean that they don't belong. So, for example, if there's a family with mom, dad, and 2 children, we would say it's a family of 4. But if there has been, say, for example, a miscarried child or an aborted baby at any point of time, then we count them in as well. And then that family becomes a family of 5, not a family of 4, as we would see outwardly. Each person, whether dead, alive, born, or unborn, has a position. And this principle focuses on that we need to hold that space, we need to hold that position, irrespective of whether we have a good rapport with them, irrespective of whether they are dead or they're alive. That's principle number 1. Each one of us belong somewhere, and each one of us belong equally. Same thing and same principle even relates to any adoptions. So when there is an adoption into the family, this child is of course belonging to this family, but the roots are with the biological parents. Or if a child in a family is given up for adoption, child is of this family, may be brought up by the foster parents or the adoptive parents. So that's about point number 1. The second principle is what we call as the principle of hierarchy, or the need for order. So it comes from with the same line that we belong to a certain family. Now, what is the need for order? The need for order is there is a specific hierarchy, which means there are people who are born before us chronologically. This is pure chronological hierarchy. For example, grandparents are of course elder to us. After them come our parents, then we come, and then comes our children. And this order, this harmony needs to be maintained for a system and the children and the members of those systems to thrive. Why? Because love and life has flown in that direction. Now, again, irrespective of our subjective experience that we carry for our family members, the fact remains that we were born out of a choice of our ancestors. And we could do anything for our ancestors, but we could never give them birth. So this is an order that cannot be reversed. We as children of our families are only able to accept. Our duty is to accept, our duty is to receive. I'll give you examples once I finish the third principle in terms of when this order is broken, how do you know it? Bringing me to the third. Before that, same thing applies in organizations, because I've had a lot of queries about how this work in organizations. Same thing. People who have been there in the organization before you chronologically are higher up in the hierarchy, irrespective of their designation whatsoever. Third principle is the need for balance. What is balance? Balance is give and take. So a system, a family, a department, a community, or a country can only be in balance when, as members of those communities, I give you a little and you give a little more. And then when you give a little more, I add on to that. The reverse is when we deplete each other. How do I explain this? As an example, imagine you've walked into a restaurant which has this beautiful chandelier on top. Now, when you look at a chandelier, what do you see? You see that there are specific spaces for the candles or the bulbs to hold. That represents your need for belonging, because each position is important. Now, if one of those holders of the bulbs go haywire, the entire chandelier will get imbalanced. In the chandelier, you will also see the second rule, which is the need of order. You will see there are tiers. There is a bigger tier on the top, and then they go smaller as we go down. And of course, there's a give and take. There's a balance, because if you keep one side of the chandelier with more, say, bulbs, and the other side is not, it is going to imbalance again. Before I move ahead, let me give you an understanding of how imbalances or relationship challenges happen. It's just like one of the holes of the chandelier now goes for a toss, and that creates the imbalance. Now, this is what we call as, in the language of family constellations, we call them as entanglements, or relationship challenges, or blocks, or patterns, as we want to call them. What happens is that in case there, in the family tree, in the ancestral lineage somewhere, if any of these principles have been broken knowingly or unknowingly, which means, say for example, about a child of a family has been forgotten. When I say forgotten, not out of any joy, it's not that people forget them because they want to forget them. People forget them because it's very painful to remember that there was a life and that life didn't make it. But from the view of family constellations, it is still an exclusion. So when that one aborted child, for example, is excluded from the conscious understanding of that family, no mention of this child, no acknowledgement of that blank position, it is observed that children of the family going forward, out of their unconscious love and loyalty for the families they want, they belong to, they try to bring in or overcompensate for that missing person, for that missing child. This is what we call as, this member of the family is now trying to rebalance, is trying to overcompensate that loss. Or in other words, we say this child of the family is now entangled with somebody who probably went missing either in his or her generation, or could be missing from any other generation. So this unconscious love, loyalty, comes from the fact that they want to bring the balance back. They want to bring the order back. They want to bring the belonging back. Now, please bear in mind, none of this is conscious, because consciously nobody wants to be entangled anywhere and bring on a disease, bring on bad luck, bring on some kind of block for them. This is completely unconscious. Let me give you a few examples. So I once had a client, she came in and her presenting problem was, I have a total lack of abundance in any aspect of my life. You know, I have lost my job. I don't have money. Um, I have broken up with my partner. So any aspect of my life that I look at, I don't know what is wrong with me, but I just don't have any joy in my life. So when we did the constellation, what the matrix showed is, when my client, when she was in her prenatal stage, she was in her mother's womb, it was just not her. She had a twin at the same time. So mother was pregnant actually with two babies. One didn't make it. The lady who came to me, my client, she made it. And because that child was, again, did parents knew about it, but of course it's painful, right, to know that I'm carrying two children and then that one doesn't make it. So it's a taboo. Nobody talks about the missing twin. And this client of mine, she's actually entangled with the unborn twin and actually following the twin. In the sense, it's sometimes even what we call a survivor's guilt, that I made it and you didn't. So how can I, live this life to the fullest when I know unconsciously, not consciously, that there was somebody else who also needed to be here. So when you follow somebody into death, of course you're rejecting life. So whatever she was attracting in her life, whether it was a job or a partner or money, doors were shutting down because unconsciously she's entangled with the twin. Now, it's very important to mention that many times we don't even know of these missing siblings, of these missing children, because there is something called a vanishing twin syndrome. 1 out of 3 pregnancies start with multiple embryos. And many a times, even before the first scan is done, the other embryos or the lives, they don't make it. So sometimes even parents don't even know that there was another baby. But the soul knows, the soul of the surviving child knows, and this is how entanglements can creep in later in life. Let me give you an example of the order. Someone from Illuminations, can you check please the waiting room? I think there are still people coming in and out. Need for order, hierarchy. So again, client came with lack of career opportunities, like, no matter, no, sorry, client came with just can't find the right partner. No matter how many women I date, it sometimes just goes haywire. It just doesn't happen. So again, when we laid out the constellation, it came up that in the family of origin, my client, he had lost his father very, very young. And again, out of unconscious love and loyalty towards mother, who doesn't have a partner, the father isn't there, this child has taken up that position. So the child is actually stepped into the reverse order. So instead of respecting that hierarchy of the position that has gone missing, now his entire focus is to take care of the mother and in a very nice way, like provide for her, and he's just there. So constellation completely shows that partner is there, partner is waiting, but client has no focus on the partner. Client's focus is on making things right which have happened in the past. Father is dead, no longer there, but I am trying to keep maintain that position so that I can balance it. So this is what we very commonly say as parentification. There are many more cases, many more examples. I can keep giving. Let me think of something different. Property, very common. When somebody is unable to sell a property, when unable to get access to money that has got locked in some family issue. Again, for example, if there was a client I've recently worked with where the property that is inherited through many generations, completely forgotten is the dead siblings of the mother. So when the property gets, say for example, if the property is to be divided equally between 5 children, and someone is dead out of those siblings, or somebody is excluded. So in this case, there was death. There was also exclusion because one of the brothers of the mother had severe addiction issues, and he was like kind of outcast, which is again an exclusion. So exclusion can also happen not only through death, it can also happen when somebody is ostracized completely and thrown out of a family, which means their loss has been the gain for the rest of the siblings. Now, that needs to be acknowledged. It doesn't need to, because if someone is dead, you can bring that person back, but their position has to be acknowledged with a lot of respect, so that when this property flows down to the generations below, the children of those generations are able to enjoy that and to receive that, because many times they are not even able to receive it because they are entangled with the person who was, for example, ostracized or who's dead and nobody wants to talk about it. So these are a few examples. If you want more, of course, I can go on. There are so many I can tell you top of my mind. So understanding, this is what I was explaining, that relationship challenges are actually our entanglements with people who have been there before us, but have been excluded by death, excluded by the family, excluded by us, excluded through judgment. There can be many kind of exclusions. So, though we are today talking of relationship issues, but please bear in mind that these entanglements can come also as physical illnesses. They can come with your relationships to money, they can come with blocks to career successes. So, any pattern that you see in your life or in your family, they could also be a result of all these entanglements. Coming back to how do we work on this through family constellations is, as I mentioned earlier, it's a solution focused therapy. Our focus is at a very deep healing for the level of the soul. We are not looking at stories. We are looking at basic facts before we start the constellation, and we are looking at what is hidden, what has still not come up, what or who has been excluded, has been judged, has been put aside. Now, main part and the most interesting part of how does this work. So there are many ways of doing family constellations. I will explain first how it works in a group when we do a workshop, and then I'll explain how you can even do this one-on-one. It can even be done online. Well, with this year, with COVID and the restrictions we've had, I've worked a lot one-on-one, and I've worked a lot online, and I can tell you that whichever way you choose to work, the results are always the same. The results will not differ. However, your experience as a client will be very different when you do it as a workshop vis-a-vis when you do it one-on-one. And I'll explain why and when I get into the details. So, the most fascinating way of doing, as per me, family constellations is, of course, doing it in a group, at least for the ones who have not experienced this modality before. I urge to everyone that this is something that you must experience at least once in your life, because it is so magical and so profound. So what happens in a group is, we'll have, say, a group of 8 to 10 people, and we'll have a big room to ourselves, and each person has, of course, come with their own issue. So, say for example, in a group of 10, there are 10 people in the room, and then there's me as a facilitator, and each person, one by one, you will come up to me and you will talk about what you want to work on. And then after listening to you, then I would tell you to pick 2 or 3 people from the rest of the group. Now, bear in mind, you don't know them; they are strangers. They don't know your story. When you're doing the case taking, you could either talk to your facilitator in front of everyone, but if you don't feel comfortable, we could just go out and you could just explain to me, and the others will not even know what your story is and what you want to work on. Irrespective of that, when we come back, I would tell you, say for example, someone comes and says, I want to work on money, I can't attract money. So in that case, I would tell this person that, okay, choose one person out of the remaining 9 that are in the group, choose one person for yourself, choose one person for money, and choose a third person to represent your block for money. Now, the client's role ends there. It is like, unlike the other modalities where you as the client, the work is being done through you. In this modality, all you do is you will now select these people from the group, and should they be willing to participate in your constellation, you will bring them, and then you're going to just place them in the field, in the room, anywhere. And from that time onwards, your only job is to sit and observe what's happening. That's where I say your conscious, your subconscious, no input, no further input is required from you. Now, these people who are now selected will now start to move, to talk, to feel certain things in their body, which we call as the movement. You will see the flow of energy. Sometimes we need to give them words. There will be truth statements. And this, the picture, the resolution picture will evolve. Now, for ones who are completely new to it, what we call as the field or the matrix is what we call as the knowing field. In this line of work, we believe that information is available everywhere. Should we be able to tap into it, we can channel. So in a group of those 10 people, each one can channel equally. You don't have to be different to channel. All you need to do to channel is to be very empty and step into that that energy. And from there, I don't know how to explain it. It's just magical because people tap into energy of family members. They will tap into energy of the elements to the precise moment when I've seen that if, for example, someone is playing someone's father and client's father has arthritis and the guy who's playing the father actually has a sharp pain in the knee. So to the preciseness of even physical feelings show up in the matrix. For people who are more interested to know about the matrix and how it works, I can give you references later once we finish because it's extremely intriguing. Now, when this movement happens, it will automatically settle down. There will be a resolution that the constellation will show. Now, for the client, there are choices. You could then step in and take that final picture. So, as far as I'm concerned as a facilitator, my role is to in a very unbiased way, not again trying to solve it, to bring to client the new picture. So the original picture is what client puts these elements into the matrix, as you see in the picture, and this picture will change, and the final picture will be the resolution picture. It is sometimes clients take it in immediately, sometimes it may take a little bit of time, but it works in either case. It is not that if client is unable to integrate it, it doesn't work, because it still shows what it has to show. Having said that, there are certain times when there is no resolution, which means the resolution is just accepting what constellation tries to show. How do we do this one-on-one? The only difference, it's exactly the same way we do it. The only exception is you don't have those people around you to channel. So when you're working with your facilitator, so if I'm working with you, it's going to be me and you, and we could use figurines as you see in the picture. You could use dolls, you could use crystals, you could use bottles, you could even use paper, pillows, chairs, anything. So instead of those strangers channeling for you, it's you and me who would take part and take time to channel each of those elements. And we can do it online in the same way, because you could still have the figurines, you could still have the crystals, and you could still move them around. I repeat that the resolution, the clarity that you get, the results are always the same. It makes no difference whether you do it one-on-one or whether you do it in a group, but the experience you get from a group is very, very different. Also, because when you're doing a one-day workshop, it's just not about your constellation. You will be picked up to be reps for others in the constellation, in their constellations. Now, when I say rep, please understand, this is not script. There is no role play. You just go into the matrix and you emote, you feel certain things, and things start to move. Even sometimes people sign up for workshops when they don't have their own issues to put as constellations. There always will be a pattern in the kind of roles that you also get picked up. So for example, if you are getting picked up for the role of a mother 4 or 5 times, then there is something that is automatically healing in you, though it's not your constellation. So that part you will not be able to experience in a one-on-one, but the results are still the same. Many times people come just to observe. Many times people come, they would not put their constellation, they will come just to be reps. And many times I have seen when we're doing a full day constellation, people come up, maybe the 8th, 9th, 10th constellation of the day, they'll come and say, I came with this issue, but with the number of times I've been reps to different constellations, that issue is already, I know what the answer is to me, so I will work on something else. It is truly magical to see the power of the knowing field, and that's as much as I can explain in words, but you have to experience it for yourself to know how it feels and how it works. Before I move on, a lot of people ask me about when do I see the results? So in my opinion, I have seen results in half an hour. I have seen in one of my workshops, constellation done on a topic, and in half an hour, there was a phone call with a resolution to it. And I've also seen resolutions come in 4 years, which means it comes in layers. So there is no hard and fast rule of how fast and how slow it will be, but I guess it depends on a lot of factors. So yeah, I have seen it in front of my eyes of this half an hour resolution. And I've had people who come back after 2 years, after 4 years, and they'll say, you know what, now the constellation makes sense. It didn't make sense that time, but today I completely understand what it was. Now, is this modality for you? How would you know that? I'm just going to look at the chat box. I think I have a question. Helena. Yes. How would participants protect themselves on energetical level for such interactions and role plays? Okay. So, Elena, this is also a very frequently asked question. Thanks for raising it. You don't, this is not channeling. When I say, I'm not saying that you're taking in someone's energy. You are stepping into the matrix with your permission. You're playing a role. Say for example, you're playing client's mother, sister, brother, father. When you step out of the role, it is my role as the facilitator to de-role you. So if the client who is put you in the role will also de-role you and will take that energy back. Now I have never had an issue where I have seen that somebody is still in that role. It is like you put on a costume, you go and perform on the stage, and you come back, and when you get out of the role, you get out of the costume, you're back to being you. There is, of course, a formality in which we consciously de-roll. Sometimes when people are in the grip of that emotion, you do simple things. You drink water, you take a break, and you just check with people. But you don't. There is no need for it's not a bad energy. It is not. There is nothing good or bad in constellation. That's the whole premise of this line of work. That there's nothing called a good energy coming and nothing called a bad energy coming. We look at it from a perspective of just pure energy, which is neither good nor bad. And when you look at it from that side, it cannot cause any harm to anyone. You will feel it as a rep and you move out as a rep, you're back to being you. If that doesn't answer your question, let me know. I will try to rephrase again. So, how do you know if family constellations is for you? Again, all those questions which we looked at in the beginning, if any of those is what is your focus, then definitely. And I would also add that if you have tried other lines of work, if you've tried many other modalities and it's still you're stuck in that same pattern, in that same challenge, then it is definitely worth doing a family constellation. Now, I say this from my own personal experience. My first constellation was about something that I was stuck with for a long time. It was actually for my children, which I had tried to solve with many other things. It didn't work. And that's when I was introduced to family constellations. And from that day to today, it's been a huge shift and a huge journey. For me personally, it always comes in layers, so it doesn't come like that. I hope it will someday, but it's a layer. It just sheds the layers and you move towards, it's a journey towards progress. What do you need to completely take in the benefit of this modality is openness. When I say openness, sometimes constellations the matrix will show things which may be very different from what we believe consciously. And it may be too premature to say that, oh, I want to step in or I want to integrate this. But that's fine, that's okay. Taking time for it is not a problem, but that openness from the heart is required to look at what it is, whether it is whether it fits into the frame of the conscious mind or not has got nothing to do with it. Only thing you need is that openness to take in that new picture, and it may take a little time for you to get there, but you will still be there. The second thing is there needs to be some kind of an urge, to change. That no, whatever is happening in my life right now, this just can't be status quo. It just can't go on like this. There is some need to change, which brings me to the third point, that there needs to be a push. There needs to be an urgency inside you that says, I got to do this. I got to resolve it. I need to see what I am not seeing. When you have a combination of this need to change, a burning urgency inside you, and the openness to take in the new picture, then definitely family constellations is something for you. So that's all I have. that I thought I could put together, because I know it's a short one, it's a 1 hour webinar. Um, there is a workshop that's coming up in Jan for anyone who is interested, and I would just open up to any questions, any queries that you have. If there's anything that is not clear, if you have any doubts, you could either unmute yourself and talk to me, or you could type in the chat box, whatever suits you. Okay, I think I have questions. Elena says, thank you. So I guess I answered your question. Don't worry. This is not about, as I say, we look at, Elena, from our life, from the concept of, my personal consciousness. So let me give you an example. So same example of, if there's a member in the family who is addicted, say there is alcohol addiction, there's drug addiction, and this member of the family is not available, never there, and then the father or the mother passes away, and then they want to distribute the property, so the whole entire family comes together and says, no, we can't have anything to do with that member of the family because he's never there, and they distribute the property between the people who are uh, the other, say, brothers and sisters. Now, from a personal consciousness point of view, this is the right decision, because how can this person is not even available? How can we kind of put this together for this person? It's okay at a personal consciousness level, because at that level there's a right and a wrong. Now, we go beyond that. In constellation, we are not looking at personal, we are looking at the collective consciousness. And when we are looking at even beyond that, we are looking from the meta position where we are saying this is no space of judgment. And when there is no space for judgment, that means there's nothing right or wrong. So, whatever energy that comes in fact, we actually bring in the excluded energy, or the so-called bad energy, or the so-called perpetrator, the so-called villain who has been pushed away, with complete neutrality. So even when you're working with the so-called good and bad, because in constellation there is nothing good and bad, it's exactly what it is. We are recognizing that energy. The moment that is recognized, the entanglement breaks with whoever in the family, the children of the family, the other siblings of the family, they can walk free from that entanglement. This is how it works. So it's no question of getting into bad energy or good energy. All energy is perfect just the way it is. Thank you, Prem. You found it informative. Elena, could you please repeat the point about adopted children and belonging? Okay, so it is the same. For adopted children, adoption means what? Like, there are only two cases. Like, either a child is adopted into the family, or a child from a family is given up for adoption. Now, adoptive children in a family, who, say, for example, one family has adopted a child. Now, this is legally, the child belongs to this family, but the fact remains that this child actually has roots in another family tree, right? This child has a biological parent and has adoptive parents. So the belonging still remains there. Of course, this child belongs here legally as well, but what we ideally shouldn't be doing is excluding the in our hearts. When I say excluding, I'm not saying you have to go and because many times there are closed adoptions, you don't even know who the parents are, you have no information on the biological parents of adopted children, but we ought to carry them in our hearts, because if today I have a child who I've adopted, this child came from some two other people, and towards those two people, all we need to do is have respect and have gratitude. So again, the whole idea is to move away from judgment, to move away from any kind of exclusion. And if from my family a child has been given up for adoption, then we carry the children in our heart, though they are not with us. And I've worked with cases like that, where a sibling has been given away. Well, that sibling is still there. So say in a family of 3 children, the youngest one is given away. Well, it is still a family of 3 children and 2 parents. We just cannot forget, because of pain. We still have to keep space for that child. Let me know if that answers that. Would family constellation help with a memory block? I feel if I have a block on the majority of my childhood experience. Family constellation could work on anything, Angela. So yeah, if memory is what you want to work with, we put memory as an element into the constellation. Having said that, with memory blocks you can work with any other modality as well. You could work with regression therapy, you could work with hypnotherapy. Family constellations, of course you can. There must be you, there must be your memories, and there must be a block to these memories, right? So you we just have to place that in the system and see what comes up. You could work with anything and everything in family constellations. There's nothing that I can say you can't work with. Okay, let me see if I have any other questions. No, I don't think so. Okay, so I'm going to be here for the next few minutes. If you have any questions, you could either unmute yourself or you could put it in the chat box. I will be more than happy to answer. And in case that we're going to end it, in that case, I wish you all the very best. Happy New Year in advance and have a lovely evening. Thank you for joining me today. But as I mentioned, I'll be here for a while. If there are any questions, and I'll be more than glad to answer them. Happy holidays. Thank you so much. Thank you, Elena.